Hi again, it's Jason from Fraser Valley Rose Farm, and today I'll be reviewing an electric composter product that was sent to me from a Kickstarter campaign. This one is called Nagool. Now sometimes I have to wonder how I got to where I am now from where I've been, and I'm pretty sure this came from my discussion in the past about Bokashi as a compost alternative. I've made no secret of the fact that I don't like to manage a hot compost throughout the year. I find it hard to do in the winter here, just as a matter of practicality, but also there are too many rodents and problems. I'd prefer to handle it as Bokashi. Now Bokashi, as you know, is a way you ferment your food waste and then bury it out in the garden. But I think the thought was that if I've looked at the pros and cons of compost in the past and compared it to compost alternatives, that I might be a good person to look at this as a composting alternative. So now about the name electric composters. I'll talk about the name Nagool a little bit later on when I'm talking about trying to give my honest feedback about the product and its prospects on the market. But calling it an electric composter, is that accurate? Well, the answer, of course, is no. It's a compost alternative that's electrically powered. What it really does to the food is it dries it out and grinds it up into tiny little bits. You have to make the analogy here of what you would do with your fall leaves in the garden. You could leave them out there to sit in big piles and they would take a while to break down, or you could throw them through a leaf shredder and then reapply them to a garden bed, and you'll see that they break down an awful lot faster. So it's sort of a similar comparison here, is that if you take the food from this and you dry it out and grind it down, it takes up a much, much smaller amount of space, and then when you apply it to your garden beds outdoors or to your indoor plants, then it can compost and break down much, much quicker. So it takes the job of composting, takes all of the steps out of the job of composting and turns it into just something like you pour the food in, you press the button, and it says 1.5 hours later, you'll have something that you can use as a compost. I'm not sure if that 1.5 hour timeline, because I've seen products like this that take longer than that, but I'm going to be testing it out. Well, you wouldn't normally see me do a traditional unboxing as nicely packaged as this is. The next shot you were going to see was all this completely set up. However, as I pulled it out and I was diligently looking to read the instructions, I find that it is all in Chinese, so there is no English instructions at all provided. Okay, I guess the next thing I'll do is go back to the Kickstarter campaign website or to the manufacturer's website and see if they have any special instructions. Really what I'm kind of looking for is what is the exclusions in terms of food. What does this mean? I mean, I guess that's a minimum and maximum for filling the bucket. That's what I'm kind of looking for here. It does look like it's 110 volts, so that's a good thing for me. But that's about all I can read here, and if it has any special instructions, I'll have to find those online. Well, I did find some food guidance, some exclusions on their website, but really how hard could it be to operate? It looks like there's no buttons or anything. There's just a locked or unlocked position on the lid. I've opened the lid. Inside here is just a ceramic bucket that has the I guess blades is what you would call them across the bottom there. And only thing left to do is to load it up with some food waste and see how it does. So classic banana peels, fruit peels, apple peels, some luncheon meat. I guess these are coffee grounds with the filters, sliced peppers and such. Got a kind of a package of lettuce from the store that went a little bit soft in the fridge. So we'll try that out. Oops. And it looks like some refried beans, some more luncheon meat. And it says not to go above this line here, so I think I'm kind of full, more or less. So there we go. As for real exclusions of things on the website, they said don't put in here. They said don't put anything hard in here that is going to jam up those blades at the bottom. So nothing like pork chop bones or big bones. You could do small chicken bones or small fish bones, they said. That would be fine, but you don't want to go with anything hard like walnut shells or oyster shells or so on. Second thing they said is nothing that is sugary, like super sugary or starchy or carbohydrate-y. I think what they're talking about here is, for instance, if you had like desserts and baking waste like that, if you stuffed all that in here, it's that sugar and the fat and the carbohydrates is more likely to burn in here than to just dry. So this really is intended for mixed kitchen scraps, vegetable peelings, leftovers from your plate. If you had a little bit of mashed potato or rice mixed in on a plate to go in here, that would be fine with other things. But if you had a whole rice cooker full of rice that you were trying to dispose of, you wouldn't put it in here because it would be more likely to burn. All right, with that said, I don't see anything else I can do except turn it on. So placing this right here and ooh. Hang on, I'm moving the camera down a little, just so you can see that row of lights across the bottom there. And I hear the motor moving inside of it. This thing is made, it obviously has a heating element, it has that motor to move the blades, and it also moves air through to try to dry it a little bit quicker. It has carbon filter elements across the back, I'll show you that shortly, that are intended to filter that air so you don't get any odor as you do your composting. All right, I'm gonna leave this on for the next hour and a half and see if that's anywhere near the mark. Well, it did not take an hour and a half. It actually took about 5 hours to finish this. When I came and paused the machine and opened it up after an hour and a half to see what the progress was like, what I saw inside there was a paste of garbage, heated up and wet and stinking. And it gave me some idea of what I was missing out on by it having that carbon filter and filtering the air as it goes in and out. So actually, I'm glad they have that as a feature. I got no scent on the outside of the machine. When I went back to the Indiegogo site, and I think I said Kickstarter before, but it was Indiegogo, its headline says an hour and a half. In the fine print, it says between 2 and 5 hours. So that part is honest, although I wish they'd update the headline. Not that 5 hours is a particularly long time compared to composting, but it would be nice to have the accurate information. What you get, and I'll give you a close-up of this, when it's finished, is this just really dried, ground up meal of what would have been vegetable skins and everything else that you saw go into the machine. So let's do a comparison of costs and benefits here, because there is no compost system that's perfect, and as a compost alternative, this sounds pretty attractive. You put in your materials, you press the button, and it cuts all the time out, it cuts all of the effort out. What does that cost you? I'm going to put some costs up on the screen here, just estimated costs in terms of what it costs for the machine. I'll also put in the cost of a replacement filter, which you will have to change from time to time. And in terms of electricity, it took less than 1 kilowatt hour. So in local terms, I'm sure that's in the range of 20 cents, 25 cents. So it's not a lot to run the machine for one day. I guess that would add up over the course of a month. I think on the site they said about the cost of a cup of coffee. Yeah, maybe a Starbucks coffee for running this for a month. Now, in terms of that cost versus the benefit. Well, the benefit is, again, that it cuts out all of the time and effort. One of the reasons my family won't touch the compost right now and the Bokashi that I do is because there's a gross factor. This kind of takes all of the gross factor out of it. This material here, I don't think anybody's going to have any problem handling that. I can either dump that into a big bucket and collect it and store it and put it outside in my garden beds after the winter or even during the winter on a nice day, or I can use this indoors, apparently, for my growing plants, my tropicals and my other indoor growing plants. That's what I'm going to do next here, and that may be the closing scene in the video, is I'm just going to sprinkle some of the finer bits here on the top of the plant, put some water on it. I'm going to see if it turns kind of wet and gross smelling again, or whether it just starts to deteriorate over the next few days. We'll see how that goes. So I do have a few pieces of criticism that I'm not sure the manufacturer will want to hear. You know, the first one, well, of course, that manual was not in English. If you want to launch this in English-speaking countries, you'll have to fix that. The second one I wanted to say, and it's not a big deal, except it's a marketing thing, is the name. It's called Nagool, which, from what I understand, is a loan word from a Central American sorcerer who can turn himself into a jaguar, at least as mythology goes. I think that's where the term actually came from. I wasn't familiar with it. First thing that popped into my mind was the term Nazgul from Lord of the Rings, those ring wraiths. Either which way, that's not a particularly positive association in North American English, and it certainly doesn't convey something that's high-tech and easy and you know, ecologically friendly and so on. So that's my main piece of criticism there. Other than that, you know, this ceramic bowl came out, it's clean, it's heavy duty. The machine worked the way it was supposed to do over a short period of time. It didn't use too much electricity. I did measure that as I was doing it, and as I say, came out less than 1 kilowatt hour. So overall, you know, clean, easy, nice to use. Probably for anybody who has other composting alternatives that you're doing outdoors, this you probably wouldn't bother with except maybe in the winter months. So that might reduce how much it's worth doing for you. If you were in an apartment, yeah, I could see how this would make a lot of sense. If you don't want to send the food in with if you don't have a city composting program or so on, this might make a lot of sense for your situation. All right, let me try to apply some of this to a plant now. Well, here's what the dried compost alternative looks like real close up. Not the most attractive, but not the least attractive either. I'm going to throw it across the tops of the pot here and add some water. And then I'll leave it for a couple of days and we'll see if it turns into a stinky mess or whether it's acceptable as a top dress for plants. It's been a week since the original footage and I've watered this twice. You can see the look of it. I mean, you can see that there's definitely little dried pieces or dehydrated pieces of vegetable matter in there. I guess not completely unattractive. Probably you could work it into the top layer of the soil. When I watered it, I did get a little bit of odor. Not much, it was just fleeting. I did have an independent nose. My wife walked past it though and said, "Is there garbage in here?" So I guess the banana peel or whatever else was in there, as it starts to rehydrate, it lets off a little bit of odor. But once again, that was fleeting. I also put some of this in a planter outside and I'll just show you what that looked like. And out here, much the same thing. It picked up a little bit of water from the rain. I haven't detected, of course, any odor out here, and maybe it would be a little less unsightly if I dug it into the top layer of the soil. But you can see that some of the pieces, like this piece of orange peel over here, didn't fully break down in the initial process or wasn't chopped up finely. So anyway, to give you an idea of what you get. Thanks so much for watching, and if you have any questions, please drop them below the video.